Just one more slice. That's what researcher Johnson says to himself. It's the 15th he's had today, the equivalent of 3 whole pizzas. But how can you not, when Site-17 has the incredible offer of limitless pizza? It's raised morale here, when every day comes with the risk of getting massacred, mutilated, or transformed by creatures or cursed objects beyond comprehension. Knowing that during lunch, you can have your favorite pizza really takes the edge off. And researcher Johnson is far from alone in this. He looks around the cafeteria and sees the bloated researchers and guards, stuffed on stuffed crust, sucking the grease off their fingers after packing in way too many slices of pepperoni or, controversially, ham and pineapple. Johnson's boss, Dr. Julie Schnatter, waddles over to him. Despite trying to maintain professional composure in her slick pantsuit, adjusting her fashionable glasses with faintly marinara-stained fingers, she's clearly just housed another 2 of her favorite Detroit-style deep dish pizzas. She was sporting the shirt-button-straining food baby to show for it. It seemed that ever since the new limitless pizza provision had been introduced at Site-17, all the staff, at every level, have been getting a lot rounder. When she swallows her mouthful of bread, cheese, and mushroom, Dr. Schnatter starts giving researcher Johnson some new emergency instructions. He needs to go and do some tests on SCP-352, who'd been showing some unusual new patterns of behavior lately. In the haze of meat sweats and mild indigestion, researcher Johnson can't exactly remember what SCP that is. But he's a people pleaser and knows it'd be a bad look to ask his boss to refresh him on the details. Dr. Schnatter thanked him for being so cooperative before leaving to get another few slices of pizza. A button popped off her blouse from the strain, as though preemptively making room for what was to come. With considerable effort, researcher Johnson heaved himself out of his chair and trudged out of the mess hall, fondly remembering how delicious today's stuffed crust meat feast pizza had been. He could hardly remember ever enjoying this job so much. It had been the best decision that the site directors had ever made, installing that new pizza-based anomaly in the cafeteria. Why couldn't they find more fun, tasty anomalies like that, rather than all the scary ones that loved killing people? These chased the question of what SCP-352 was out of his mind again. The food here is so good that he doesn't mind how much weight he's put on. Even if his steps are slower and heavier now, it's not like it makes him any less of a competent researcher. Same as his boss. Julie's gone up 5 dress sizes, and she's just as meticulous as ever. Maybe they're the highest performing containment site out there, if they did tests on that kind of thing. His Homer Simpson-esque musings came to a halt when he reached the door of SCP-352's containment chamber, swiped his keycard, and walked inside. He was thinking about what pizza he might be able to manifest tomorrow. Maybe Italian sausage, chicken and mushrooms, perhaps anchovies if he's feeling dangerous. The thought must be making his stomach rumble. Until he realizes that's not his stomach that he's hearing. Researcher Johnson turns and sees a figure moving quickly towards him from the corner of the room, a desiccated old hag with long, gnarled fingers and burning eyes. She knocked him to the ground before he could even scream and loomed over him, drool dripping from her fangs.
"Oh, you're a blood one,"
she said in a dead language.
"Lucky me."
And that's how researcher Johnson, in his last moments, remembered what exactly SCP-352 was. It was Baba Yaga, the ancient, flesh-eating Slavic witch. Some anomalies are reviled, some anomalies are feared, and a small handful of anomalies are universally beloved. SCP-458, also known as the Never-Ending Pizza Box, is one of those elite and rarefied anomalies. It's exactly what it sounds like, a large Little Caesars hot and ready pizza box that develops an empathic connection with anyone using it. When you open the box, it will give you whatever kind of pizza you'd love most, and when you close it again, it will simply work the same way in perpetuity. And this isn't limited to Little Caesars brand pizza, or pizza that has been previously created. Imagination and digestibility are seemingly the only limits, as the pizza box won't produce something that can't actually be eaten. We discovered this when Dr. Clef's request for a pizza topped with Glock 40s was seemingly rejected. Dr. Clef attempted to then physically destroy the pizza box with no success. It turned out that the box is completely indestructible, much to the relief of pizza lovers everywhere. It seems believable that the box might even be sentient, given the knowledge it seems to hold about people's pizza preferences, even down to the most minute details. I'm aware of what you're thinking. To quote a famous advertising campaign, "Where's the beef?" What's the heart of this anomaly that makes it worth an explanation in this full video? Personally, it's a fascinating series of test logs where SCP-458 was tested on a number of anomalies and staff members to see what would be the ideal kind of pizza they'd manifest. Almost like a kind of stuffed crust Rorschach test. So without further ado, let's take a look, shall we? It was first tested on SCP-040, an anomaly known as Evolution's Child. This pink-haired little girl has tremendous reality-warping abilities to manifest different living creatures out of organic matter, the result of human experiments at a CIA project intended to grant children superpowers. And in this case, the powers bestowed upon SCP-040, also known as Emma, are literally godlike. But you may still be wondering, what would be her ideal pizza? That's what the researchers in this case were eager to find out. The answer was a commendable small pizza with extra cheese and a stuffed crust, which Emma considered a peace offering after a distressing incident where the Foundation tried to make her reanimate a human corpse, which she did not particularly enjoy. Then there's SCP-049, an anomaly known as the Plague Doctor. He's one of the more fascinating entities in Foundation custody to me personally, a self-professed man of medical science fighting a mysterious and deadly illness known as the pestilence for the sake of humankind. And yet his ways of dealing with that pestilence feel downright ineffective and, for lack of a better word, evil. His touch kills, and once someone has died from his deadly touch, he uses his own unique pseudo-medical methods to bring them back from the dead as terrifying, deformed zombies. Only at this point does the Plague Doctor consider his patients truly cured of the pestilence. But what would be his favorite kind of pizza? That's the question that really haunts us. In terms of his current diet, 049 enjoys what you'd expect of a medieval French physician: bread, beef, and hard cheese, though he doesn't physiologically need to eat, he just does it for pleasure. However, when it came to pizza that expressed his deepest, innermost desires, he got a little more fancy with it. He went for a small pizza in the French bread style, thin crust with thinly sliced onions and extra olives. What? Can't a man of science enjoy himself now and then? Wanting to test the moral limits of the never-ending pizza box, a sentence that you'd only find in the discussion about the SCP Foundation, the researchers tried to test the pizza box on SCP-082, a large, pathologically lying humanoid known as Fernand the Cannibal. Yes, you can probably already see where this is going. The deep dish Chicago-style pizza that was produced did indeed prove to contain human flesh as a topping. However, the flesh, strangely, did not have any DNA markers that would link it back to any individual person. This confirmed that the limits really do only seem to be digestibility, not legality. However, the lack of traceable DNA markers in the human flesh on the pizza implies that nobody was hurt in the process of the pizza's creation. It may even be a way to sustainably feed the Foundation's obligate anthropophages without needing to cause unnecessary deaths among D-Class personnel. And in case you were wondering, Fernand, who claimed that he was, in fact, Gordon Ramsay at the time, said that he thoroughly enjoyed the pizza, despite being in the persona of such a tough critic. Being extremely opinionated is one thing. The Foundation was curious as to whether the anomaly would be affected by being used by entities that aren't famous for having free will of their own. Could the pizza box discover the wants of an anomaly that, in theory, doesn't want? This was why the Foundation used SCP-662, the butler's handbell, to summon Mr. Deeds, an impeccably mannered supernatural butler who will carry out any command given to him to the best of his considerable ability. When he was given the pizza box, he paused for a brief period before being instructed to open the box. When he did, the contents was a thin crust margarita pizza, which Mr. Deeds expressed no real opinion on. It turned out that this was actually the favorite pizza of the researcher who instructed Mr. Deeds to open the box in the first place. This showed that in the absence of desire, the external intent that willed Mr. Deeds to open the box was the one that became the target of the box's telepathic effects. But what about SCP-056, an anomaly ironically codenamed a beautiful person? For anyone unfamiliar, the specialty of this anomaly is essentially mogging everyone around it. It's a polymorphic entity that becomes a slightly better version of anyone or anything it's placed next to, seemingly purely out of spite. And you'd think that it would become a somehow better version of SCP-458 rather than just selecting a pizza. However, it seems that this is ultimately impossible because SCP-458 is the absolute best version of what it is. So instead, it made a relatively simple order: a medium pizza with sliced bell peppers, a thin crust, and Alfredo sauce. This makes SCP-458 one of the only anomalies to humble the thoroughly narcissistic SCP-056. But what would be a biblically good pizza? In order to find out, the researchers on the SCP-458 case decided to test the pizza box on Cain and Abel to see what these legendarily acrimonious brothers could be united by a taste in pizza. First came Cain, the first murderer, who has metal limbs, reflects damage he suffers onto others, and causes any plant life he touches to instantly wither and die. He's forever weighed down by the guilt of what he did to his brother and the dark mark of God himself for having stained the hands of mankind with blood. So what kind of pizza would a man like that enjoy? As it turns out, a medium pizza with feta and jack cheese, no sauce, and a thin crust. However, he never actually got to eat the pizza. In a tragic outcome that mimics the Greek tale of Tantalus, it withered in his hands, much like any regular plant life in response to Cain's metal touch. But what about Abel, Cain's brother and the first murder victim, who then decided to create many, many more murder victims over the thousands of years of his life? Abel is a 7-foot-tall, hyper-aggressive warrior with superlative combat skills and the ability to manifest weapons out of nowhere, which he's historically used both in service of and against the SCP Foundation. But if he could manifest a pizza out of thin air, what would it be? Turns out, he'd request a pizza truly fitting of a warrior of his stature. A large, thick crust pizza whose toppings include meatballs, pepperoni, bacon, Canadian bacon, sausage, and hamburger. I'm admittedly feeling a little hungry just describing that. I don't say this often, but good choice, Abel. Speaking of anomalies who have been historically exploited as living tools and weapons by the SCP Foundation, the box was also tested on SCP-105, also known as Iris. This is a young girl able to have anomalous interactions with photographs. In short, she's able to reach through them as though they're a portal and interact directly with the subjects of the photographs in a fashion similar to so-called sympathetic magic. This has led to some undeniably disturbing consequences, where the Foundation attempted to make Iris use her power to perform assassinations against people of interest on their behalf. Naturally, Iris wasn't amenable to that idea, but she was amenable to getting to select the pizza that reflected her innermost desires. She requested a small, thin-crust, wheat-based pizza with olives. What can we say? The girl has simple tastes. They also decided to give a pizza to SCP-108-1, an African-American woman whose nasal cavity contains a portal to a different dimension, but is other than that completely non-anomalous and physiologically regular. Remaining consistent with how normal she is, other than the alternate dimension in her nose, she had a very normal pizza order too, a large, thick-crust pepperoni pizza. But what about when you give the pizza to creatures that are definitively not human? That was a valuable test that the Foundation could conduct with SCP-166, a teenage nature goddess with reindeer-like features. When she's standing within 15 meters of any object, those objects will slowly work their way back into their most natural state. Complex constructed objects will eventually return to the raw material that created them. And yes, because we know you're wondering, she requested a small, thin-crust oregano pizza with no sauce. However, after consuming it, she complained about stomach discomfort and nausea for the following 20 hours. Everybody's a critic, I suppose. Some people, on the other hand, are a lot luckier in life than SCP-166, such as SCP-181, a former D-Class known as Lucky, because he has the uncanny ability to siphon the luck from those around them and utilize it himself. In other words, while things will go well for him, everyone around him will have terrible luck. He had a large pepperoni and sausage pizza with a marinara stuffed crust, which the Foundation told him was a reward for good behavior, and the fact that it happened to be his favorite kind of pizza was just another stroke of incredible luck on his part. An anomaly who is a lot less lucky is SCP-2662, a teenage Cthulhu who just wants to be left alone so he can game in peace, but whose very existence results in the spontaneous formation of cults across the globe that will plot and kill to reach him and engage in worship. And for the record, he has no interest at all in engaging with any of these cults. The researchers on the SCP-458 case decided that he needed a little treat, and so they let him select a pizza from SCP-458. Fitting for his underwater home nation of Roulier, His pizza featured several large trout and deep-sea eels, which were raw. He was quoted saying,
"Whoa, dude, this is crazy. I had no idea anyone outside of Carcosa Pizza sold this. It's my favorite."
Yet another satisfied customer. But what kind of pizza would be fit for God himself? The researchers wanted to know that too. That's why they took the pizza to SCP-458, an extremely powerful reality warper who refers to himself as God. And for all we know, he actually might be. One indication of this is just how deeply insane his pizza order was. A huge pizza with seemingly every topping imaginable, with over 100 distinct foodstuffs identified in the mix. Though to be fair, SCP-343 was intent on sharing it with everyone else at the containment site too, so his omnibenevolence continues. Speaking of deeply benevolent creatures, SCP-999, the tickle monster, also got to have a turn on the pizza box. This is a true crossover that gets it right. Two of the most beloved anomalies in the Foundation roster working together. Who knows how wonderful the results will be? Well, we do, because you're about to find out. The pizza was described as follows: soft dough base smothered in decadent chocolate spread or ganache, layered with an array of assorted chocolates, chocolate chips, Hershey's Kisses, and Reese's Pieces. Scattered colorful candies like M&Ms and gummy bears across the top, drizzled with melted chocolate and sprinkles. I love SCP-999 as much as the next guy, but I will admit that pizza order makes me feel a little nauseous. Moving on, because just thinking about this is making me slip into a state of diabetic shock. From one 999 to another, the Foundation got a unique chance to test a very specific anomaly when one of the D-Class members of personnel began dying of renal failure. This summoned SCP-4999, someone to watch over us, an anomaly who will show up and share a last smoke with a dying person so that nobody ever has to die alone. The researchers decided to thank him for the valuable palliative care he provides by offering him a pizza of his choice from the never-ending pizza box, which was an extra-large, half-supreme, half-pepperoni pizza, which he shared with the dying D-Class. This turned out to be the exact kind of pizza that the D-Class had often shared with his girlfriend in happier days. The next test subject of the SCP-458 testing spree was the Death Knife, SCP-5175, and its wielder, an anime-loving security guard named Damien Lawrence Woodcock, haunted by the spirit of the long-dead Japanese samurai Kuroi Tanken Hanzo. Given that multiple consciousnesses with very different tests were at work here, the Foundation was curious as to how this would affect the empathic abilities of the never-ending pizza box. As you can probably expect from a card-carrying otaku, he summoned a large pizza with mozzarella cheese stuffed crust, a barbecue sauce base, bacon bits, bacon strips, ground beef, ham, pepperoni, sausage, and a dusting of crushed chili cheese Fritos. The spirit of Hanzo contributed the addition of teriyaki sauce. Strangely, not any kind of traditional Japanese condiment, but the modern fusion equivalent. This was something the spirit of Hanzo had developed a taste for after how much teriyaki chicken Damien had eaten from the food court in his downtime. Those two crazy guys. Gotta love them. And in the interest of gathering as much knowledge as possible, they even tested the pizza box on the Cuban leader Fidel Castro, just because he was around at the time and they were curious about what would happen. The result was a large, thick crust pizza covered in over a dozen varieties of cheeses. Castro really loves his fromage, it seems. Due to the particular nature of this anomaly, it has some of the most lax containment procedures of any SCP in the Foundation's entire roster. It has been given the SAFE Class and is currently situated in the Site-17 cafeteria, where any staff are allowed to access it without first seeking permission. However, the one threat that the box has proven is as a distraction from more important Foundation matters. As such, Dr. Del Marino appended a note to the never-ending pizza box's file, reading, "I would just like to remind all staff that just because we have a pizza box that can constantly create pizzas for you does not mean that you can just sit around and eat pizza all afternoon. If continued abuse of the box continues, coupled with reports of personnel gaining unhealthy amounts of weight, I may be forced to implement a mandatory physical training regimen following lunch hours." The idea of needing to do mandatory physical training after every lunch hour. I can't personally think of an anomaly that's much scarier than that. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-1550, Dr. Wondertainment's Custom Pets, Top 12 SCP Animals compilation.